At 1:14 in the morning, a fist hammered on Ethan Walker's front door, so hard the picture frame in the hallway jumped off its nail and cracked against the floor. 3 blows, then 4 more. He came down the stairs with a baseball bat in one hand and his daughter's fever thermometer still in the other. When he threw the door open, a woman in soaked hospital scrubs was standing on his porch, dried blood on her sleeve, a ruined cardboard box in her arms, and she said 6 words it would take him 11 months to understand. "Please don't tell anyone I'm here." That box was addressed to a woman who had been dead for 7 months. And by sunrise, the quiet life Ethan Walker had spent 2 years building was already over. Before we start, type the name of your city in the comments so I can see how far this story travels tonight. And if you believe the right person can knock on your door at the worst hour of your life, hit that subscribe button and stay with me to the very end. Because what she's carrying doesn't come out for a long time. And when it finally does, nothing is ever the same again. Ethan Walker didn't own a gun, and he'd never once regretted it until that moment. He stood in his own doorway at 1 in the morning with a Louisville Slugger in his fist, rain blowing sideways past the porch light, and a stranger looking up at him with the flattest, most exhausted eyes he had ever seen on a human being. "You're going to have to say that again," he said. "I said please don't tell anyone I'm here. Lady, I don't know who you are. Who would I tell?" She laughed. It wasn't a real laugh. It was the sound a person makes when they're 2 seconds from falling apart, and they've decided to spend those 2 seconds being polite instead. "That's fair," she said. "That's completely fair. You're standing on my porch at 1 in the morning. I know. My kid's asleep upstairs. She's sick. I know that too. Your light's been on since 10. She shifted the box in her arms, and water ran off the bottom of it and splattered on the boards. "I'm your neighbor, the gray house, on the left." Ethan looked past her. Through the rain, he could just make out the outline of the place next door. Big square, well-kept, and dark as a shut coffin. He'd lived here 14 months and had never once seen a porch light on over there. "The one with no lights," he said. "That's the one. I figured that house was empty." "So does everybody." She said it fast, like she'd said it before, and then she seemed to hear herself and looked away. "This came to me 2 days ago. It's not mine. It's got your address on it. I meant to bring it over at a normal hour and then She stopped, started again. "It's been a night. I'm sorry. I'm sorry this was stupid." She turned to go. That was the moment. Ethan would think about it later, years later, the way a man thinks about a fork in a road. He almost took the other way. Because he was tired, and his daughter had been running a fever since dinner, and every instinct he had was telling him to take the box, shut the door, and go back to being a man with no complications. Instead, he saw her sleeve. "Hey," he said, "is that blood?" She stopped on the second step. She didn't turn around. "Yes." "Yours?" "No." Ethan set the bat against the doorframe. "Come inside." "That's not necessary." "Ma'am, it's 48 degrees and you're soaking wet and there's blood on you. Come inside, or I'm going to stand out here in my socks arguing with you until one of us gets pneumonia, and I'm telling you right now, I'll win. I'm very stubborn. It's my only skill." There was a pause. Then a small sound out of her that might have been the beginning of a real laugh quickly killed. "Okay," she said. Her name was Olivia Carter. She told him that at the kitchen table with a dish towel around her shoulders and a mug of coffee. She wasn't drinking, just holding both hands wrapped around it like it was the last warm thing in the state of Tennessee. "Ethan," he said. "Ethan Walker." "I know." "You know. Your name's on the mailbox. I'm not a stalker, Mr. Walker. I'm just observant, and I don't sleep." "Ethan's fine." "Ethan." She said it like she was testing whether the word would hold weight. "Thank you for the coffee." "You're not drinking it." "I'm not going to. I just wanted something to hold." He sat down across from her. He was aware in a distant way that he was a 38-year-old man in a Titans t-shirt and pajama pants, entertaining a strange woman in the middle of the night, and that 6 years ago, that would have been a very different kind of story. This wasn't that. He'd never in his life seen a person look so completely finished. You want to tell me about the blood? No. Okay. That's it. Okay. That's it. He leaned back. I spent 11 years running construction crews. You learn pretty quick that when a man comes in off the job with something in his face, you don't dig it out of him. You just make sure he's not alone while he carries it. Olivia looked at him then. Really looked for the first time since she'd come through the door. That's a strange thing for a stranger to say, she said. You knocked on my door. I didn't knock on yours. Fair. Upstairs a small voice called out. Daddy! Ethan was up before the second syllable landed. That's Lily. Give me a minute. How high is her fever? He stopped at the bottom of the stairs. 101 when I checked at 11. When did it start? Around 6. Is she pulling at her ear? Ethan turned around slowly. How would you know that? Because kids with a 6 o'clock fever are usually one of 4 things, and 3 of them involve an ear. She stood up, and the towel slid off her shoulder, and something in her posture changed. The exhaustion didn't go anywhere, but it got underneath something else, something upright and certain. I'm a doctor, Mr. Walker. Ethan. I'm an OB-GYN, which means I am absolutely not a pediatrician. But I did 4 years of medical school and a residency where I ran a lot of nights alone. And I promise you, I can tell you whether your 6-year-old needs an emergency room at 1 in the morning or a bottle of children's ibuprofen and a wet washcloth. He didn't move. You don't have to let me, she said. I'm a stranger. I'd say no too. Yeah, Ethan said. You would, huh? I absolutely would. He stood there another second. Then, she doesn't like strangers. Since the divorce, she gets quiet. Real quiet. Don't take it personal. I won't. And she'll ask you questions. She asks everybody questions. It's a whole thing. Good, Olivia said. I like questions. Lily Walker was 6 years old, small for her age, and had the specific flushed, glassy look that turns a father's stomach to water. She was sitting up in bed with a stuffed rabbit that had been washed so many times it had gone from brown to a color that had no name. She looked at Olivia, then at her father, then back at Olivia. Who are you? My name's Olivia. I live next door. No, you don't. Nobody lives there. Lily, Ethan said. It's a reasonable position, Olivia said. I keep the lights off. Can I sit on the edge of your bed? Lily considered this with the gravity of a woman 3 times her age. Okay. Thank you. Can you tell me if anything hurts? My head, and my ear does a thing. What kind of thing? A hurting thing. Which ear? Lily pointed. Olivia leaned in, and Ethan watched her hands, watched how they went gentle, without going slow. How she talked the whole time in a low, easy voice that didn't sound like a doctor's voice at all. It sounded like somebody's aunt. Okay, Olivia said. Here's what I think. I think you have an ear infection, and I think you're going to feel a whole lot worse before you feel better, and I think that's very unfair. It is unfair. It really is. Do I have to go to the hospital? No. But your dad's going to call a doctor in the morning and get you some medicine, and he's going to feel very good about himself for doing it. Lily looked at her father. He always feels good about himself. Hey, Ethan said. He does. He makes a face. Olivia's mouth moved. It was almost a smile. It was the closest thing to one she'd managed all night. One more question, Lily said. Go ahead. Why are you wet? The almost smile went out like a match in wind. Because I had a hard night at work, Olivia said, and I forgot my umbrella. What's your work? I help babies get born. Lily's eyes went enormous. All of them. Not all of them, but a lot. Did you help one tonight? There was a silence in that little bedroom that Ethan Walker never forgot for the rest of his life. Yes, Olivia said. I did. Was it good? It was a beautiful baby girl, 7 pounds 1 ounce. She had a whole lot of hair. That's good, Lily said, satisfied, and lay back down. You can come again. Downstairs, Olivia sat back down at the table and put her face in her hands, and she stayed like that for a long time, and Ethan didn't say a word. When she finally spoke, her voice came out through her fingers. The mother died. Ethan set down his mug. 26 years old, Olivia said. Her name was Marisol, third baby. She had a placental abruption. That's when it doesn't matter what it is. It means everything goes wrong in about 90 seconds, and there's nothing anybody can do about it fast enough. We got the baby. We got her out, and she's perfect. She's in the NICU right now, and she's perfect. She lowered her hands. Her eyes were dry. That was somehow worse. And then I stood in a hallway, and I told a 29-year-old drywall installer named Victor that his wife was gone, and that he was now the father of 3. Jesus. He asked me if it was his fault. He asked me if it was because he made her go to work too long. He kept saying that. Did I make her work too long? Her hands were flat on the table now, very still. And then he thanked me. He thanked me, Ethan. He shook my hand, and he thanked me for trying. That's what people do. I know what people do. I've been doing this 8 years. She pressed her thumb hard into the center of her palm over and over. That's the part nobody warns you about. That they thank you. That's the part that gets you. Ethan got up, took the coffee. She wasn't drinking, poured it in the sink, and put a glass of water in front of her instead. Drink that. I'm fine. You're not fine, and you're going to drink the water because I've buried a marriage, not a wife, and I still know what a person looks like when they haven't had anything but adrenaline in 9 hours. She drank the water. Now, Ethan said, sitting back down. Why'd you come here? To bring the box. Ma'am? Olivia. Olivia. It's 1 a.m, and it's a cardboard box for a house you don't live in. She stared at the table. Because your light was on, she said. That's it. That's it. I sat in my driveway for 22 minutes. I know it was 22 because I watched the clock. And every house on this street was dark except yours, and I thought somebody's awake. Somebody in this whole world is awake right now besides me. She shook her head once sharply. It's the most pathetic thing I've ever said out loud. No, it isn't. It is. No. Ethan said it isn't. Because I've done it. She looked up. After my wife left, he said, I used to drive to the Waffle House on Dickerson Pike at 2 a.m. Not to eat. I'd order coffee and I'd sit in the corner booth. Because it was the only place I knew where there'd be other people awake, and none of them would ask me a single question. He turned his mug in a slow circle. Did that maybe 40 nights in a row? So no. It's not the most pathetic thing anybody's ever said in this kitchen. It's not even in the top 5. Olivia Carter let out a breath that seemed to have been in her chest for about a decade. What happened? She said. With your wife. If that's... It's not a secret. She met somebody. That's the whole story. There's no villain, there's no big scene. Rachel was 34, and she looked at the next 40 years of her life with me, and it wasn't enough, and I'd be lying if I told you I didn't understand it. He shrugged. She lives in Phoenix now. She calls Lily on Sundays. She's not a monster. She's just gone. Is that harder or easier that she's not a monster? Harder, Ethan said immediately. 100 times harder. If she was a monster, I'd have something to be. Instead, I just got quiet. Quiet. Yeah. And you moved out here. Sold the house in East Nashville, took a job doing project management for a commercial outfit, then quit that too, and started doing residential remodels on my own, so I could be home when the school bus comes at 3:15. He smiled a little, but there wasn't much in it. I make about half what I used to make. My father-in-law, ex-father-in-law, told me I'd thrown away my career for a school bus. What did you say? I said the school bus comes at 3:15. He looked at her. That's the whole argument. That's all I got. But it turns out it's a pretty good one. Olivia stared at him for a long moment. You're a good father, she said. I'm an available father. There's a difference, and I don't let myself get confused about it. No, she said. There isn't. Not from where I'm sitting. There really isn't. Her phone buzzed on the table. Ethan watched it happen. He would think about it a lot later, how fast it was, how total. The name came up on the screen, and Olivia Carter changed. Her spine straightened. Her chin came up. Every soft, wrecked human thing in her face closed like a shop at 9 o'clock, and what was left was somebody else entirely. Somebody composed, Somebody expensive. She didn't answer it. It stopped. Then it started again. You gonna get that? No. It rang out. Started a third time. Somebody wants you, Ethan said. Somebody always wants me. She picked it up and looked at the screen, and something crossed her face that he couldn't read at all. Then she answered it, and her voice came out in a register he hadn't heard from her yet. Bright smooth, absolutely unbothered. Hi, Dad. Ethan started to get up to give her the room. She caught his wrist, shook her head. Stay. He sat back down. No, I'm home, Olivia said. About an hour ago. A pause. It was fine. Another pause longer. Yes, I heard. Her thumb pressed into her palm again, that same spot hard enough to leave a mark. I don't think that's the appropriate no. No, I understand it's a review. I understand. Pause. Dad, a woman died tonight. Whatever came back through the phone, Ethan couldn't hear it. But he watched Olivia's eyes go somewhere very far away and stay there. Yes, she said. 9 o'clock. I'll be there. Pause. I know what it looks like. Pause. Yes. Thank you. Good night. She set the phone face down on the table with enormous care, the way you'd set down something that might go off. The kitchen was quiet except for the rain. That was my father, she said. Figured. He's the chairman of the board at Holloway Medical Center, my hospital. She said it perfectly evenly. A patient died on my table tonight, and he's already been called, and the first thing he wanted to discuss was how it's going to look. How it's going to look. Yes. Before he asked if you were okay. Olivia's mouth turned up on one side, and there was nothing behind it. Oh, he didn't ask if I was okay. Ethan sat forward. Ma'am Olivia, I'm about to say something out of line, and I want you to know I know it's out of line. Say it. That's the worst thing I've heard all night. And you told me a 26-year-old mother died tonight. Olivia Carter looked at him for 5 full seconds. Then she started to cry. Not loudly. She was clearly a woman who had trained herself out of crying loudly a long, long time ago. She just sat there with her hands flat on his kitchen table and let it happen while her shoulders shook, and Ethan Walker did the only thing he knew how to do, which was to get up, pull a clean dish towel out of the drawer, set it down beside her hand, and go stand at the sink with his back turned so she could have it in private. I'm sorry, she said after a while. For what? For... She gestured at all of it. This. Do you cry in front of people a lot? Never. Then you didn't waste it, Ethan said. You spent it on somebody who's not going to tell anybody. That's a decent transaction. She laughed. Wetly and badly, but it was real. You're a very odd man, she said. I've been told. By who? Everybody, consistently, since about the 4th grade. It was almost 2:30 when she stood up to go, and it was Ethan who remembered the box. Hey, you forgot the thing that was supposedly your whole reason for coming over here. Right. Olivia picked it up off the counter. It had gone soft at the corners, and half the tape had let go. It's got your address, but it's not your name. Some previous owner, I think. UPS put it on my porch. I don't know why. Yeah, we still get their mail. Whole family moved out before we bought it. The realtor said it was an estate sale, so I figured somebody passed. What's the name on it? Olivia turned the box around to read the label. And stopped. Ethan was 2 steps away, and he watched every bit of color go out of her face. He'd seen a man lose that much blood from his face exactly once before on a job site in the second after a scaffold clamp let go. Olivia. She didn't answer. Olivia. Grace Halloran, she said. That's the name? Yes. You know her. Olivia set the box down on the counter very carefully with both hands, and Ethan noticed that she put it down the way a person sets down something they don't want to be touching anymore. She was my patient, Olivia said. Was. She died in February. The rain hit the kitchen window in a long gust. Neither of them said anything. You didn't know she lived here, Ethan said. No. Olivia was staring at the box. No, I didn't. I moved in 8 months ago. I've driven past this house every single day for 8 months. Her voice had gone strange and thin. That's not possible. It's a small town. It's a small city. That kind of thing happens. No. She said it too fast. No, it doesn't. Olivia. I have to go. Hang on. I have to go. Ethan. I'm sorry. Thank you for the coffee. I'm sorry about your daughter's ear. She was already at the door, already pulling it open on the wet dark, and then she stopped, one hand on the frame, and turned back. And for 1 second the composure was gone again, and what was underneath was so raw that Ethan actually took a step toward her. You should throw that box away, she said. What? Don't open it. Just throw it away. And then she was gone across the wet grass, and the screen door banged, and Ethan Walker was standing in his own kitchen at 2:30 in the morning, next to a wet cardboard box addressed to a dead woman with absolutely no idea what had just happened to him. He went up and checked it on Lily. Her fever had broken a little. She'd kicked the blanket off and had one arm flung over the rabbit, and he stood in the doorway watching her breathe the way he'd done 1,000 nights and would do 1,000 more. Daddy, she said, half asleep. Go back to sleep, Bug. Is the lady gone? Yeah, she went home. Lily made a small, unhappy noise into the pillow. I liked her, she said. Yeah, Ethan said. Me too. He didn't sleep. He lay on top of the covers in his clothes and stared at the ceiling and ran the whole night back through his head over and over until 3:40 in the morning, when a set of headlights swept across his bedroom wall. He got up and went to the window. Next door in the driveway of the big gray house with no lights on, Olivia Carter's car was sitting with the engine running and the wipers going. She wasn't getting out. Ethan stood at that window for 4 minutes. Then 6. Then 11. The car sat there. The wipers went back and forth. And behind the glass, he could just make out the shape of her both hands still on the wheel, staring straight ahead at a garage door she wasn't opening. And that was when Ethan Walker understood something that turned him cold in a way the rain never had. She hadn't come to his door because she was running from the storm. She'd come to his door because she couldn't make herself go inside her own house. It was 3:51 in the morning when Ethan Walker put his boots on over bare feet, pulled a jacket off the hook, and walked out into the rain toward a car that had been idling in a driveway for 26 minutes. He knocked on the driver's side window with 2 knuckles. Olivia Carter jumped so hard her elbow hit the horn and the sound cracked across 4 sleeping houses. She lowered the window about 3 inches. Are you insane? Probably, Ethan said. You want to explain what you're doing? I'm sitting in my car. For half an hour. You were counting. I was watching. There's a difference, and it's not a flattering one. So let's both agree, I'm the weird one here, and move on. She stared straight ahead through the windshield. The wipers kept going, back and forth over glass that didn't need it anymore because the rain had eased up to almost nothing. Go home, Ethan. I am home. You can see my house from here. That's how neighbors work. I'm fine. You keep saying that word like it's a password. Her jaw moved. What do you want me to say? I want you to say why a grown woman who owns a house with 4 bedrooms and a 2-car garage would rather sleep sitting up in a Volvo. The wipers went back and forth twice more before she answered. Because when I go inside, Olivia said, it's quiet. Most people like quiet. Most people didn't spend 9 hours listening to monitors. Most people didn't hold a woman's hand while her blood pressure went to nothing. Her voice stayed perfectly level, which somehow made it worse. When it's quiet, I can still hear it. So I sit here with the engine on, because the engine makes a noise, and then eventually the sun comes up and I go to work. Ethan let that sit. How many nights? He said. What? How many nights have you done that? She didn't answer. Okay, he said. My couch is bad. I want to be honest with you about the couch. It's got a spring in it that'll get you right in the kidney if you lie down wrong. But the coffee maker's on a timer, and it goes off at 6, and there's a kid in that house who wakes up at 6:30 and makes noise like a marching band. And I promise you that whatever's waiting for you inside your house cannot survive a 6-year-old singing the wrong words to a Frozen song. Olivia laughed. It came out of her sideways like she'd been ambushed by it. I can't sleep on your couch. I know. It's completely inappropriate. I know that too. Then why are you standing in the rain offering? Because I wasn't going to be able to sleep either, Ethan said, and I figured at least one of us should get something out of this. She turned the key. The engine died. In the quiet after it, she put both hands over her face for a second, and then she took them away and looked at him through the gap in the window. I'm going to go inside my house, she said. Okay. Not because you asked, because I'm 40 minutes from having to shower and put on real clothes and go sit in a conference room. Sure. Ethan. Yeah. Thank you. At 6:47. That morning, Lily Walker came down the stairs with her hair standing straight up on one side and her rabbit dragging by an ear, and announced that her ear still hurt, but that she was going to be brave about it, and also was the lady coming back. I don't know, Bug. Why not? Because grown-ups are complicated. That's not an answer. It's the only one I got before coffee. At 8:15 he had her at the pediatrician on Old Hickory, and by 9 he had an orange bottle of amoxicillin and a kid who wanted pancakes as compensation for suffering. When they pulled back into the driveway a little after 10, there was a small paper bag sitting on the top step. Inside it was a box of children's ibuprofen, the good kind, the bubblegum kind, and a folded piece of notepaper with a hospital logo on it. Lily grabbed it before he could. Read it, she demanded. Ethan read it out loud. It says give it to her every 6 hours if the fever comes back not 4-6, and if the ear drains anything that isn't clear, call the doctor same day. Signed the lady from next door. That's not her name. No, it's not. She should sign her name. I think she was in a hurry, Bug. What Lily could not have known, and what Ethan did not learn for another 2 months, was that at that exact moment, 9:04 in the morning, Dr. Olivia Carter was sitting at the end of a long table on the 4th floor of Holloway Medical Center, while 11 people discussed the worst night of her life in the voice you use for a quarterly earnings call. The record is clear, a man in a gray suit was saying. Dr. Carter's management was appropriate and timely. There's no exposure here. That's not why I asked for the meeting, Olivia said. Nobody looked at her. Her father sat at the other end of that table. Richard Carter was 66 years old, silver-haired in a suit that cost more than a used car, and he had not once in Olivia's entire life raised his voice to her. That was the thing people never understood. He never had to. Then why did you ask for the meeting, Olivia? He said. Because we were 4 minutes from the OR and the second room wasn't staffed. Because I called for blood and it took 11 minutes to come up. Because this is the 3rd time since January. 3rd time something took 11 minutes. 3rd time we've been short and somebody paid for it. And you have documentation of the other 2. I filed them both. With whom? With quality assurance, Olivia said. In February and in April. There was a small silence at that table. 10 seconds maybe. Olivia counted it. Later she would think that 10 seconds was the exact length of the rest of her life. Those matters were reviewed and closed, her father said. By who? Olivia. By whom then? I'm asking a grammatically correct question. Who closed them? The man in the gray suit cleared his throat. The February matter was the Halloran case. That was reviewed by an external committee and closed in April. There's a letter. I never saw a letter. It was addressed to the department. I am the department, Olivia said, on Tuesdays and Fridays and every other weekend, and I never saw a letter. Her father put down his pen. That was all he did. He put down a pen and set it exactly parallel to the edge of his portfolio, and every single person in that room stopped talking. We'll speak in my office, he said. At 9:40 that morning in an office on the 6th floor with a view of the river. Richard Carter poured his daughter a glass of water she didn't ask for. You lost a patient last night, he said. You're not thinking clearly. I'm thinking very clearly. You're thinking like somebody who wants to be right more than she wants to be effective. A woman died, Dad. A woman died of a placental abruption, which is what women have died of since the beginning of recorded time, and no amount of staffing on any night in any hospital in America was going to change that. He handed her the water. She didn't take it. He set it down. Now, if you would like to have a conversation about staffing ratios, I will put you on the operations committee, and you can have that conversation with people who can actually do something about it. If you would like to have a conversation about the Halloran case, that conversation is over, and every additional time you open it, you make it look like there's something in it. Is there something in it? Her father looked at her for a long moment. Preston is taking you to dinner Thursday, he said. The Vances are coming in from Memphis. Wear something that photographs. I'm on call Thursday. You're not anymore. Olivia stood in that office and understood in a way she had somehow avoided understanding for 34 years that she had just been told to sit down and that she was going to. She said, "Yes, sir." She hated herself the whole drive home. For 9 days after that, Ethan Walker saw nothing of his neighbor except her car, in at odd hours, out at odder ones. On the 10th day, he was up on a ladder cleaning his gutters when he noticed something that stopped him cold. There was a light on in the gray house, downstairs, kitchen, he figured. First time in 14 months. He didn't go over. He told himself it was because a man doesn't invite himself into a woman's house. The truth was simpler and less flattering, and it was this. Ethan Walker was 38 years old. He had been left once, and something about that woman had gotten into him in about 4 hours flat, and the smartest thing a man in his position could do was climb down off the ladder and go make his daughter dinner. He climbed down. He made dinner. He got about 11 days into being smart. Then, on a Saturday afternoon, Lily Walker took a piece of construction paper, a green crayon, and 45 minutes of extremely serious labor and made a drawing. "What is it?" Ethan asked. "It's her house with the lights on." He looked at it. A gray square. Yellow scribbles in every window. A stick figure out front with enormous hair. "That's really good, Bug. I'm putting it on her door." "Lily, you said we should be nice to neighbors." "I did say that." "Then I'm being nice to neighbors," she said with the crushing finality of a Supreme Court decision, and she was out the door and across the grass before he got his shoes on. At 5:20 that evening, there was a knock on the Walker front door, and Olivia Carter was standing on the porch holding a green crayon drawing in both hands like it was a document being served. "Hi," she said. "Hi. Your daughter committed a felony." "She does that. I found this taped to my door with what I believe is medical tape, which raises questions about my supply closet." "Yeah, she went through my truck kit. I'll talk to her." "Don't." Ethan leaned on the frame. "You want to come in?" "No." "Okay." "Yes," Olivia said. "Obviously yes. I've been standing on my own porch for 10 minutes trying to decide. And if I stand out here any longer, I'm going to talk myself out of it, so please just move." He moved. Lily came around the corner at a dead run, stopped 2 feet short, and got suddenly painfully shy. "Hi," she said to the floor. "Hi, Lily. Did you like it?" Olivia crouched down. It was not a graceful crouch. She was still wearing scrubs, and she had clearly not slept in a while, and she got down on Ethan Walker's floor and held that piece of construction paper up. "I like it so much," she said, "that I want to ask you a favor. Would it be okay if I put it on my refrigerator?" Lily considered this. "You have a refrigerator?" "I do." "Is there food in it?" Olivia's mouth twitched. "That is a devastating question, and the answer is mustard." "That's not food." "No," Olivia agreed. "It is not." Ethan said, "We're having spaghetti." "I didn't come over for dinner." "I know, that's why I'm offering. You come over for dinner, I don't offer, that's the whole system." She stayed for 3 hours. Somewhere around the 2nd hour, Lily fell asleep sideways on the couch with her feet in Olivia's lap, and neither adult moved her, and Ethan noticed that Olivia had gone very still, and that she was looking down at his kid with an expression he could not have named under torture. "You want me to move her?" he said quietly. "No." "Okay." "Ethan." "Yeah." "Nobody's fallen asleep on me in 11 years, Olivia said. "Do you understand what I mean? People fall asleep in front of me constantly. I'm a physician. I have watched hundreds of people sleep. Nobody's fallen asleep on me." He didn't have anything to say to that. So he said, "She snores. She does snore. It's terrible. It's the ear thing. It's not the ear thing. She's a snorer. I'm very sorry." That was the first night. There were about 40 more. They came slow, and then not slow. Olivia started stopping by after shifts, first once a week, then twice, then whenever her car came down the street before 9. She learned that Ethan kept a spare key under a flower pot that fooled absolutely nobody. He learned that she took her coffee black and hated it and drank it anyway because she'd started doing it in residency and had forgotten she was allowed to change. By the third week, Lily had started doing a thing that scared Ethan half to death. She'd started listening for the car. "That's her," she'd say from the kitchen table over homework. "That's a truck bug. That's her." And it would be. At 11:15 on a Tuesday night in the middle of May, sitting on his back steps with a beer she'd taken 2 sips of, Olivia said, "I need to tell you something and I need you to not make a face." "I don't make faces. You make one face. It's the only face you have. You're making it now. Go ahead. I'm having dinner Thursday with a man named Preston Vance." Ethan drank his beer. "Okay. He's a cardiothoracic surgeon. His father is on the board of 2 hospital systems and a bank. Our families have known each other for 22 years. Okay. Stop saying okay. What do you want me to say? I want you to ask me a normal question like a normal person instead of sitting there being a wall." "Fine," Ethan said. "Do you like him?" Olivia opened her mouth, closed it. "That's not," she started. "That's the question. You said ask a normal question. That's the most normal question there is." "He's a good doctor." "That's not what I asked. He's polite. He's intelligent. He's never once been unkind to me, and my father has been telling me since I was 19 years old that we would make sense together." She was pulling the label off the bottle in strips. "Do you know what it's like to have a man be perfectly correct at you for 2 decades? No. It's like being politely buried. So say no." She laughed, and it had an edge to it he hadn't heard before. "Say no." "Yeah. You don't understand my family. I understand you're 34 and a surgeon, and you have your own house. An OB, not a surgeon, and my father co-signed the house." Ethan turned and looked at her. "Why?" "Because that's what he does. That's how it works. He doesn't tell you what to do, Ethan. That's the part people never get. He just makes sure the only door that's open is the one he wants you to walk through." She set the bottle down. "When I was 26, I got offered a fellowship in maternal fetal medicine, Boston. It was the thing I wanted more than I have ever wanted anything in my whole life." "What happened?" "My mother got sick." "How sick?" Olivia was quiet for a second. "She got better," she said. "She got completely better. She's fine. She plays tennis twice a week. She's in better shape than I am." She looked out at the dark yard. "I found out 4 years later that she was never in any danger. It was a scare. That's all, it was a scare. And it lasted 9 days, and my father called me and said, 'Your mother needs you here,' and I turned down Boston in a phone call that lasted 4 minutes." Ethan didn't say anything. "Say something," she said. "I'm afraid if I say what I'm thinking you'll leave." "Say it anyway." "Your dad's not powerful," Ethan said. "He's just the only person you ever let vote." Olivia sat very still. Then she stood up, walked 6 steps out into the grass, put her hands on top of her head, and stood there with her back to him for almost a full minute. "I want you to know I'm not leaving because I'm angry," she said finally. "Okay. I'm leaving because you're right and I don't have anywhere to put it." She came Thursday anyway. Not before dinner, after. At 10:40 that night, Ethan opened the door to find her standing there in a dress that probably cost what he made in a week, holding her heels in one hand. "How was it?" he said. He proposed. Ethan's whole body went cold from the shoulders down. He what? Not officially. He did the thing where they tell you it's coming so you can prepare your face. She walked past him into the kitchen and sat down at the table where she'd sat that first night. He said, "And I want to get this exactly right," he said. "I think this fall makes sense for both of us professionally." "That's a proposal." In my world, that's a love letter. What did you say? I said that sounds like something we should talk about. She pressed her thumb into the center of her palm, that same spot that same way. I said that sounds like something we should talk about, Ethan. 34 years old, 8 years board certified, and I said that sounds like something we should talk about. Olivia? Don't. You want me to say something or not because you keep changing the rules. I want you to tell me why I did that. Because you've been trained, Ethan said. She looked up. Not raised, he said. Trained. There's a difference. I trained crews for 11 years. I know exactly what it looks like when somebody's been taught what happens if they say the wrong thing. They don't hesitate. That's how you know it took. They just answer right. Olivia Carter put her head down on his kitchen table and stayed there. At 11:55 she said into the wood, "There's something else." "Okay." "That box." Ethan's stomach dropped. "Did you throw it away?" she said. He waited a beat too long. She lifted her head. "Ethan, it's in the garage. Throw it away." "Why?" "Because I'm asking you to." "That's not a reason, that's a request wearing a reason's clothes." "Ethan, I am begging you." "Then tell me why," he said. "You came to my door at 1 in the morning with blood on you, and I didn't ask you one single question. I've made you dinner 40 times, and I never asked. I let my kid love you. Which lady is the single most dangerous thing I have ever done in my life, and I did it anyway. So you can tell me why I'm supposed to throw away a box that belonged to a dead woman." Olivia's eyes were shining and furious. "Because if you open it," she said, "I can't protect you." "From who?" She stood up. She picked up her shoes. "Thank you for the coffee," she said. "You didn't have any coffee." "I know," Olivia said. "I never do." And she left. Ethan didn't open the box that night. He wants the record to show that. He didn't open it that night or the next night or for 11 days after that. And the reason it finally happened had nothing to do with courage or curiosity or anything a man could be proud of. It happened because on the second Saturday in June, at 4:20 in the afternoon, Lily Walker went into the garage looking for her bike helmet, climbed a shelf she'd been told 900 times not to climb, and brought the whole top row down on herself. Ethan heard it from the kitchen. He has said since that he does not remember crossing the house. Lily. She was sitting on this concrete floor in a pile of paint cans and extension cords, and she was fine. She was completely fine, and she started crying the second she saw his face, because that's what kids do. "I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry." "Are you hurt? Look at me. Are you hurt anywhere?" "No." "Move your arms." "I'm fine." He sat down on the floor of his own garage and pulled his 6-year-old into his chest and held on for about 10 seconds longer than she wanted. "You scared me, Bug." "I know." "Don't climb the shelf." "I know." And it was over her shoulder while he was still holding her that Ethan Walker saw the box. It had come off the shelf with everything else. The wet cardboard had never really dried right, and it had split down one whole side, and its contents had gone out across the floor. Papers mostly. A lot of papers. He got Lily up, checked her one more time, sent her inside with a juice box and a stern speech. Neither of them believed. And then he came back out to the garage and stood over it for a long time. He crouched down. There were medical records, photocopies, dozens of pages with a hospital header he recognized because he'd seen it on a piece of notepaper taped to a bag of children's ibuprofen. There was a spiral notebook, the cheap kind, with dates written down the margins in small, tight handwriting. There was a folded printout of an email chain with half the names blacked out in marker. And sitting on top of all of it, face up, like it had been waiting 14 months for someone to move a shelf, was a plain white envelope. There was one line written across the front of it in blue ink. "Dr. Olivia Carter, if I'm not here." Ethan Walker sat down on the concrete floor of his garage with his back against the wall and that envelope in his hands, and for the first time in his life, he understood exactly precisely what it feels like to be holding something that is going to take your whole quiet life apart. He looked at the door his daughter had just walked through. Then he looked at the gray house next door, where a light was on in the kitchen window for the first time in 8 months, and he turned the envelope over. The envelope wasn't sealed. That was the first thing that got him. Whatever a man imagines about a letter like that, he imagines it glued shut and waiting. This one had the flap tucked in the way you tuck a card you plan to hand somebody yourself. And Ethan Walker sat on the concrete with his back against the wall and understood that Grace Halloran had expected to deliver it in person. There were 2 pages inside, both handwritten, both on the back of somebody's blank patient education sheets. He read the first line 4 times before it went in. Olivia. If you're reading this, then either they told you it was your fault, or they told you it was nobody's fault. Both of those are lies, and you already know which one they used, because they always use the same one on you. At 4:41, in the afternoon on the second Saturday in June, Ethan Walker heard the screen door bang and his daughter yelling that she wanted a second juice box, and he shouted back that she could have one, and he did not move off that floor for another 11 minutes. I need to say the hard thing first, because I might not get to say it out loud. I gave them your name. In April, when they came to me and asked who was pushing it, I said, Dr. Carter, and I let them think you were the only one, because I was 38 weeks, and I was scared, and I wanted to keep my job. I have thought about that every day since. If I could take one thing back in my whole life, it would be that, and I have made some spectacular mistakes, so understand what I'm telling you. The second page is the part that matters. Read it when you're sitting down and not at work. Do not read it at work. And Olivia, I know about Daniel Reyes. I've known for 6 years. I never said anything because you never said anything, and I figured we were both cowards on the same payroll. Ethan turned to the second page. He got about a third of the way down it, and then he stood up so fast, he knocked a paint can over, and he went into the house and got his phone, and he did not call Olivia Carter. He called nobody. He stood in his kitchen with the second page in his hand, and his heart going like a hammer drill, and he thought about the fact that his 6-year-old was in the next room drinking apple juice and watching a cartoon, and he thought about the exact words that woman had said to him in that same kitchen. If you open it, I can't protect you. At 8:15. That night after Lily was down, he walked across the wet grass and knocked on the door of the gray house for the first time in his life. Olivia opened it in a t-shirt and sweatpants with her hair wet, and she was smiling before she saw his face. Then she saw his face. No, she said. Olivia. No. Whatever you're about to say, no. The shelf came down in the garage. Lily climbed it. She's fine. She's completely fine. But the box split open, and I sat on the floor, and I read it. And I'm not going to stand out here and lie to you about it. Olivia Carter put one hand flat on her own doorframe like the house had moved. How much? Both pages. How much of the rest? None of it. I didn't touch the notebook. I didn't touch the records. He held the envelope out. This is yours. It's got your name on it. It's had your name on it since February, and I didn't know that, and if I had known that, I'd have brought it over the first night. She didn't take it. You should have thrown it away. Yeah, well, you should have told me why, Ethan said. We can both stand here being disappointed, or you can let me in. She let him in. Her house was. He noticed the house of a person who did not live in her house. 4 bedrooms. Furniture that matched. Nothing on any surface. A refrigerator with mustard in it, and one green crayon drawing of a gray square with yellow scribbles in all the windows, held up with a magnet shaped like a peach. She sat down on the floor of her own living room with her back against the couch, which told him more about her state of mind than anything she said for the next hour. Read it to me, she said. Olivia, it's yours. I can't. Her hands were shaking, and she looked at them like they belonged to somebody else, and she was annoyed with them. Look at that. 8 years, 11,000 deliveries. I can put a needle in a space the width of a dime, and I can't hold a piece of paper. Read it to me. So Ethan Walker sat on the floor of a stranger's living room at 8:32 on a Saturday night and read a dead woman's handwriting out loud. The first page went the way it went. When he got to the part about her giving up Olivia's name, Olivia laughed one hard syllable and put her hand over her mouth. She thought I didn't know, she said. You knew. Of course I knew. I knew in April. They told me she'd named me. That was the point of telling me. She pressed her palm against her eye. Oh, Grace. Oh, you stupid woman, you carried that for 2 months, and I could have told you in 11 seconds that I never blamed you for it. Not for 1 minute. Not for 1 second. Do you know what she was? She was the charge nurse on my unit for 9 years. 9 years. She's the one who taught me where the extra suction canisters were when I was a second year, and I didn't know anything about anything. She was a nurse there, and she was a patient there. She was 41 years old and pregnant with her first, and she should have delivered at Vanderbilt, and she chose us because it was her floor, and those were her people. Olivia's voice went flat in a way he'd learned meant she was walking straight at something. February 11th, uterine atony after delivery. That's a hemorrhage, it happens, it's survivable. We survive it 4 or 5 times a year on that unit. You need blood, and you need a second room, and you need bodies. And that night we had a nurse out and a room down, and it took 19 minutes to get product up from the bank. 19. 19. I have watched the clock in that room in my sleep every night since. She looked at the ceiling. Read the second page. Olivia. Read it. He read it. They closed the review in April. There's a letter. You never saw the letter, and you're going to spend a while telling yourself that's a mailroom thing, so let me save you the time. Get the letter. Read the attachment. Page 4. Page 4 is a statement about the events of February 11th. It says the delay in blood product delivery was not clinically significant and did not contribute to the outcome. It's 3 paragraphs. It is very well written. It's signed by you. Olivia Carter did not move for a long time. Say it again, she said. It's signed by you. That's not possible. That's what it says. That is not possible. Ethan, I never gave a statement. I asked to give one. I asked twice. I have the emails where I asked. She says there's a copy in the box. At 8:51, they were both in his garage on their knees in a pile of paint cans, and Olivia Carter went through that split cardboard box with the speed and the ugly efficiency of a person doing a procedure, and when she found it, she stopped like somebody had cut a wire. It was 4 pages stapled. She turned to the last one. Ethan watched her read it. He watched her read it a second time. He watched her hold it up toward the bare bulb in the garage ceiling and tilt it the way a man checks a $20 bill. That's my signature, she said. Is it forged? No. Her voice had gone very quiet. That's the problem. It isn't forged. It's mine. That's an electronic signature block. That's the one that gets applied through the credentialing system. She lowered the page. Somebody signed it with my credentials. Can they do that? Not legally. Can they do it at all? Olivia sat back on her heels in his garage, in her sweatpants, and stared at a shelf bracket. 2 years ago, she said slowly, my father's office called me and said the system was doing a credentialing audit and they needed my login to pull my continuing education hours because the portal was broken. I gave it to his assistant over the phone. It took 40 seconds. She closed her eyes. I never changed it. Olivia. I gave them the key, Ethan. Nobody stole anything. I handed it over because it was Tuesday and I was busy and it was my dad. He didn't say anything for a second. Then he said, you want the truth or you want comfort? Because I've only got one of those in stock. Truth. That's not the part that should scare you, Ethan said. The part that should scare you is that somebody sat down and wrote 3 paragraphs of medical opinion in your voice well enough that nobody caught it and then put your name under it. That's not a busy Tuesday. That's a person who knows exactly how you talk. Olivia opened her eyes. At 9:20. They moved to his kitchen because she said she couldn't be in her house, and they laid the whole box out on his table under the light, and for 2 hours, Dr. Olivia Carter went through Grace Halloran's spiral notebook page by page with a pen in her hand and did not cry once. Grace had been keeping it for 4 years. Dates down the left margin in small tight handwriting. Unit census. Nurse to patient ratios. Second room staffed yes or no. Times. Just times over and over in columns. Time called. Time arrived. Time to OR. She wasn't building a case, Olivia said around 11. Everybody thinks that's what this is. It isn't. Look at it. This is a charge nurse doing a staffing log because nobody would give her one. How many nights? All of them. She logged every shift she worked for 4 years. Olivia flipped forward. And then here in the back, she went through and pulled out the ones where it went bad. How many? 6. 6 what? Olivia looked up at him. 6 events, she said. 4 hemorrhages, 1 eclamptic seizure, 1 cord prolapse. 3 deaths including her own. She put her pen down. Every single one of them on a night when the second room wasn't staffed. Every single one of them between 11 at night and 5 in the morning. And every single one of them in the last 4 years, which is exactly how long it's been since the board approved what they call the overnight flex model. Which is what? Which is a spreadsheet, Olivia said, that says if you don't staff a second obstetric room overnight and you accept a certain number of what they call low probability adverse events, you save $4.1 million a year. Ethan sat down. Somebody wrote that down. Somebody presented it, with slides. She almost smiled. That's the thing people never believe. Nobody in that room is evil, not one of them. They're finance people looking at a probability, and the probability is real, and the number's real, and every one of them went home and hugged their kids and slept great. Was your dad in the room? Olivia was quiet. My father chaired the meeting, she said. At 11:40 that night, Lily Walker came halfway down the stairs in her pajamas and said, "Why are you both awake?" And both adults turned around so fast that the little girl actually took a step backward. Nothing's wrong, Bug. You have your work face. Go back to bed. Is she staying? Lily. I'm just asking. And Olivia Carter, who had not eaten since 11 in the morning and had just found her own name signed to a lie about a woman she loved, got up off her chair and walked over to the stairs and crouched down. I'm staying till you're asleep, she said. That's the deal I can make. That's not a very good deal. No, Olivia agreed. But it's the true one, and I'd rather give you a true bad deal than a nice one I can't keep. Is that okay? Lily thought about it. Okay, she said, and went up. Olivia came back to the table and sat down and put both hands over her face, and Ethan let her have about 30 seconds. You want to tell me about Daniel Reyes, he said. Her hands came down. No. Okay. Don't do that. Don't do the thing where you say okay and then just sit there being decent at me until I talk. That's the only move I've got. It's a terrible move. It works every time. Olivia stood up. She walked to the window over the sink and stood there with her crossed, looking at the dark, and Ethan watched her thumb go into the center of her opposite palm and press. I was a fourth-year resident when I was 2 years out of fellowship, she said. 7 years ago. He was the best clinician I've ever worked next to, and I've worked next to some very good ones. He was from Corpus Christi. His mother cleaned rooms at a Days Inn, and he got himself into medicine on nothing but his own back. You were together. For 14 months, nobody knew. Why nobody? Because I was Richard Carter's daughter, she said, and he was a resident, and I told myself it was about professional boundaries, and that was a lie I found very comfortable for a very long time. What happened to him? He reported a night. She said it evenly. March 7 years ago. A woman came in bleeding, and there wasn't an anesthesiologist in the building. Baby was fine. Mother was fine. Nobody died. He filed a safety report anyway because that's what the reports are for, and he named the on-call schedule, and he named the attending who wasn't there, and he named the administrator who'd approved it. And 9 days later there was a complaint about him. Olivia's voice didn't change at all. Professionalism, documentation, judgment. Nothing you can fight because none of it's a fact, it's all a smell. And they interviewed people. And one of the people they interviewed was me. Ethan felt it coming the way you feel a truck before you see it. What did you say? I signed a statement, Olivia said, that said Dr. Reyes had on several occasions shown poor judgment under pressure. The kitchen was very quiet. Was it true? It was technically true. Every word of it was technically true. He was a resident. Every resident on Earth has shown poor judgment under pressure. That's what residency is. She turned around, and her eyes were dry and enormous. I wrote the most careful, most defensible, most surgically accurate paragraph of my entire life. Ethan, and it ended a man's career, and I knew what it was for when I wrote it. Who asked you to write it? My father sat me down in his office and told me it would be worse for Daniel if the statement came from someone who liked him, and it was fair, than if it came from someone who didn't, and it wasn't. Her mouth twisted. He said, "Be kind to him." Those were the words. Be kind to him. And you did it. I did it in about 20 minutes, and then I went and had lunch. What happened to him? He didn't match into fellowship. He finished his residency because they let him, and then he left medicine entirely. And the last thing I know for certain is that he was doing pharmaceutical sales in Houston in 2021. She wrapped her arms around herself. He never called me. Not once. Not to yell, not to ask why. He just went quiet, and I have wanted for 7 years for that man to call me up and scream at me, and he never has, and I think that's the punishment. I think he knew that would be worse. Ethan sat there. That's your secret, he said. That's my secret. That's not what I expected. What did you expect? I expected some old boyfriend broke your heart and your daddy scared him off, Ethan said. I didn't expect you were the one holding the knife. Olivia flinched. It was the first time all night anything had landed. There it is, she said. I'm not judging you. You are and you should, and please don't take it back. Everybody takes it back. I tell people some version of this, and they immediately start explaining to me why it wasn't really my fault, and every time they do it, I want to put my hand through a wall. She came back to the table and put both palms flat on it. It was my fault. I did it. Nobody held a gun on me. I was 27 years old, and I was a full-grown physician, and I signed my name because I was afraid of a man who has never once raised his voice at me in my entire life. And now somebody's signed your name for you. Olivia stopped. Yeah, she said after a moment. Yeah, I noticed that too. That's not a coincidence. No, it's not. She sat down slowly. It's a policy. That's how it works there. You do it to somebody, and then it comes around, and by the time it's your turn, you can't complain because you already agreed it was allowed. At 12:04 in the morning. Ethan Walker got up, went to the cabinet, took down the whiskey he kept for exactly 2 occasions a year, poured a half-inch into a coffee mug, and set it down in front of her. You gonna drink that, he said, or hold it, hold it. Figured. She held it in both hands the way she'd held that first mug of coffee, and she looked at him over the top of it. Say the thing, she said. What thing? You've been sitting on something for an hour. You get a look. Say it. Ethan leaned forward with his forearms on the table. Olivia, you saved thousands of lives, he said. You've got 11,000 deliveries in you. There are grown people walking around this city breathing because you were in a room at 3 in the morning. And somewhere in there, you decided that your own life was the one thing you weren't allowed to spend on yourself. He let that sit for a second. You forgot that yours counts too. It counts the same as theirs. It counted when you were 27, and it counts right now at this table. Olivia Carter set the mug down. And then she said something that made the hair go up on his arms. I have a resignation letter, she said. It's been in my drafts since March. It's finished. I've read it maybe 200 times. You're leaving medicine. I was going to, in August. She looked at the table. And I want you to understand, I wasn't doing it for a reason anybody would put in a movie. I was doing it because I can't remember why I started. And I've been faking the part where you care. And when Marisol died last month, I stood in that hallway and shook a man's hand, and I felt nothing, Ethan. Nothing at all. I felt it later in your kitchen 4 hours later, and I've been terrified ever since about what that gap means. It means you're tired. It means I'm turning into them, Olivia said. That's what it means. You don't become my father in one day. You become him one careful paragraph at a time. So don't. It's not that simple. It's exactly that simple, and it's just not easy, Ethan said. And those aren't the same thing, and you're smart enough to know it. At 12:22 in the morning. Olivia Carter picked up her phone off his kitchen table, and Ethan watched her scroll to a number, and he watched her thumb hover over it for 11 full seconds. If I call him, she said, there's no undoing it. There's no undoing it either way. He's got your name on a lie about a dead woman. That's already true. It was true this morning while you were asleep. He'll ask me who told me. Then tell him, I'm not scared of your dad. You should be. She said it without any drama at all, which was what made it land. Ethan, listen to me carefully. He is not going to come to your house. He is not going to threaten you. He's going to be extremely pleasant to you for about 6 weeks, and then one day, a bank is going to look at your loan differently, or a general contractor who's been giving you work for 2 years is going to stop returning your calls, and you will never once be able to prove that anything happened. That's the whole trick. It's just weather. I've been broke before. You have a daughter. That's why, Ethan said, and his voice came up for the first time all night, and he brought it back down. That's why. I've got a 6-year-old upstairs who's going to grow up and find out what her father did when something like this landed on his garage floor. I don't get to pick whether she finds out. I only get to pick what she finds. Olivia looked at him for a long moment. Then she pressed the number. It rang 3 times. Dad, she said. I need to see you. Pause. No, not Monday. Pause. Tonight is fine. I don't care what time it is. Tomorrow morning then. Pause. Her jaw set. Because I've read page 4. Ethan couldn't hear what came back through that phone. He only knew that whatever it was short, and it was quiet. And when it ended, Olivia Carter set the phone down very carefully on his kitchen table, and her face had gone completely white. What? Ethan said. He said I wondered how long it would take you. He knew. He knew. She stood up so fast the chair went back. He knew before I called. Ethan, he wasn't surprised. I said page 4, and he didn't ask me page 4 of what. Her phone buzzed on the table. Then it buzzed again. She picked it up, and Ethan watched her read something, and he watched something in her face come apart in a way that nothing else that night had managed. What is it? It's the system, she said. It's an automated notification. Her voice had gone strange. My badge access is suspended pending review. Effective 12:26 a.m. They can do that at midnight. It's automated. Somebody flagged an account. She looked up. Ethan? I haven't done anything. I haven't touched a chart. I haven't sent an email. I haven't spoken to a single person at that hospital in 9 hours. There is no way anyone knows I opened that box. And Ethan Walker felt every ounce of blood in his body go down into his feet. Olivia, he said. What? This afternoon, after I read it, before I came over. What did you do? I called the hospital, he said. The main line. I asked to be transferred to medical records. I told a woman named Denise that I had a box of a deceased patient's paperwork that got delivered to my house by mistake, and I wanted to know who I was supposed to return it to. Olivia didn't move. I gave her the name, Ethan said. I gave her Grace Halloran. Olivia Carter didn't yell. That was the part Ethan Walker would remember. He had braced for the yelling the way a man braces for a wave, and instead she stood in his kitchen at 12:31 in the morning and asked him one question in a voice so calm it was worse than anything. Did you give her your name? Yes. Did you give her this address? She asked for it so they could send a courier. Okay, Olivia said. Olivia. Okay, okay. She put both hands on the back of a chair and leaned on it. You did the thing a normal person does. That's what I need you to hear, because you're about to spend the next hour apologizing, and we don't have the hour. A normal person finds a box that isn't theirs and calls the front desk. That's not a mistake. That's just what it looks like when somebody's never been taught to be afraid. It flagged your account. It flagged something. I don't know what. Medical records logs every request, and a request about a deceased employee with an open review would go straight to legal, and legal has a very short list of people they call at 4 in the afternoon on a Saturday. She straightened up. Where's your printer? My what? Your printer, Ethan. Do you have a scanner? Do you have anything? I've got a flatbed in the office I use for permit drawings. Turn it on. They did it for 2 hours and 11 minutes. Ethan fed pages. Olivia sorted, and neither of them said much beyond numbers. Grace Halloran's spiral notebook was 94 pages front and back. The email chain was 31. The 4-page statement with Olivia's name on the last line got scanned 3 separate times at 3 different resolutions, because Olivia said, if you're going to be accused of doctoring something, you may as well be accused of doctoring it well. At 2:47. She uploaded the whole thing to a personal cloud account, then to a second one, then emailed it to herself, then emailed it to an address Ethan didn't recognize. Who's that? My attorney. You have an attorney? I have a malpractice carrier and a defense attorney. I've met exactly once at a mandatory seminar, and her name is Ruth Feldman, and she gave me her cell number and said in front of 40 physicians, "Most of you will never call me, and the 3 of you who do will call me too late." Olivia hit send. It's 2:49 in the morning. Let's see which one I am. You want the originals in a safe place. I want them somewhere that isn't your house and isn't mine. Ethan thought about it for 4 seconds. My mother's got a hall closet in Murfreesboro, he said, and she has never once in 81 years thrown anything away. At 3:20 in the morning, Ethan Walker carried a split cardboard box out to his truck, while his daughter slept upstairs, and Olivia Carter stood in the driveway with her arms crossed and said out of nowhere, "You're not going to be able to undo this." I know. No, you don't. You think you do. She was looking at his house. You've got a good little life over there. Cereal bowls in the sink. A kid who thinks you hung the moon, and I'm the woman who knocked on the door. You keep waiting for me to blame you. I keep waiting for you to be sensible. Yeah, well, I've been sensible, Ethan said. I was sensible for 2 years after my wife left. I was so sensible, I stopped answering my phone. You want to know what sensible gets you? It gets you a very clean house. Ruth Feldman called back at 6:04 in the morning. She talked for 19 minutes, and Olivia said maybe 40 words, and when it was over, she came into Ethan's kitchen and sat down and said, "She wants me to say nothing at the meeting." Nothing. She wants me to listen, take notes, agree to nothing, sign nothing, and leave. Olivia rubbed her eyes with the heels of her hands. She said the second I explain myself, I've given them aversion to attack. She said doctors always want to explain. It's how they get us. Are you going to do it? I'm going to try. How long you figure you'll last? Olivia almost laughed. 90 seconds. He drove her. She fought him about it for 11 minutes and then got in the truck, and he parked in the visitor lot at 8:41 in the morning on a Sunday and turned off the engine. You don't have to wait. I know. Ethan. I've got a book and a thermos and a kid at my mother's house till 2, he said. Go be brave. I'll be right here being useless. The meeting was on the 6th floor. It was not a meeting. Olivia understood that the second she walked in and counted the chairs, because there were 4 people in a room set for 4, and one of them was Ruth Feldman's opposite number, and one of them was Preston Vance. Preston, Olivia said. Liv. You're not on the board. I'm on the quality committee, he said, and had the decency to look at the table when he said it. Her father was at the far end. He didn't stand up. Sit down, Olivia. I'd rather not. Sit down. She sat down. She hated that she sat down. She would think about it for a long time afterward, the automatic bend in her own knees, 34 years of hardware doing what it was built to do. The man in the gray suit did the first 9 minutes. Badge suspension was routine, pending an information security review. An external party had contacted medical records regarding protected health information belonging to a deceased patient, and the request had been traced to an address adjacent to Dr. Carter's residence, and the committee had questions about the chain of custody. Am I being accused of stealing records? Olivia said. Nobody's accusing anybody of anything, because that box was delivered by UPS to a house on my street that used to belong to Grace Halloran, and it was addressed to Grace Halloran, and I have never in my life removed a single page from that hospital. Ruth Feldman's voice was in her head saying, say nothing. She had lasted 11 minutes, better than 90 seconds. Her father said, everyone out. Richard, I don't think that's advisable. Everyone out. They went. Preston went last, and at the door he stopped and said, Liv, whatever you think this is, it isn't. And Olivia looked at him and said, Preston, in 22 years, you have never once been wrong out loud. Go on. Then it was the 2 of them. At 9:14 in the morning, Richard Carter took off his glasses, folded them, and set them down. Page 4, he said. Did you sign it? I authorized it. Olivia's ears rang. Say it in a real sentence. I instructed Marla to apply your credential block to a statement drafted by risk management, her father said. It was reviewed by counsel. It was accurate to the medical record. It said the delay wasn't clinically significant. That was the conclusion of the external reviewers. It said it in my voice, Dad. It said it under my name. It's in a file that follows me for the rest of my career. And if this ever goes to a courtroom, I'm the physician who swore under her own signature that 19 minutes didn't matter. Her voice cracked, and she hated that too. Grace Halloran bled to death on my table, and you put my name on the paper that says it was fine. Yes, her father said. I did. Why? And Richard Carter looked at his daughter, and for the first time in her entire life, Olivia watched something come off his face. Because they were going to name you, he said. What? The draft that came back in March named the attending. Not the system, not the model, not the schedule. You. It said the attending physician failed to anticipate the need for a second room given the patient's risk profile. He said it quietly. That's a finding, Olivia. That's a reportable finding. It goes to the National Practitioner Databank, and it sits on you for 30 years, and every credentialing committee in America sees it every time you move, and no amount of context ever travels with it. Just the sentence. So you rewrote it. I made the delay disappear, he said, because if there was no delay, there was nothing for you to have anticipated. And I used your signature because a statement in the attending's own words closes a review and a statement from administration opens one. Olivia sat there. You committed fraud, she said, to protect me. I protected my daughter. You protected the model. I did both, Richard Carter said. That's how it works, Olivia. That's the part you've never wanted to learn. It's never one thing. It is always both. At 9:31, she stood up and her legs held. Undo it. I can't. Retract it. Reopen the review, file a corrected statement, and say what? That the chairman of the board falsified a physician's attestation. He almost smiled. Do you understand what that does? It's not a letter. It's a federal reporting event. The hospital loses its accreditation cycle. The system pulls out of the merger. 400 people in this building lose their jobs in a year, and you personally get a finding, a suspension, and probably a deposition, where a very good lawyer asks you why your login was used, and you have to answer that you handed it to my assistant over the phone. Then that's what happens. Olivia, that's what happens, Dad. You would burn your entire career. I was quitting in August, she said. That landed. She watched it land. 66 years old, silver-haired, and for 1 second Richard Carter looked like a man who'd missed a step in the dark. You're not quitting. There's a letter in my drafts. I wrote it in March. I've read it 200 times. She picked up her bag. And here's the part you're going to think about tonight. I wrote it 3 weeks after that review came back. I didn't know why. I thought I was tired. She got to the door. I wasn't tired. Some part of me already knew what you'd done, and it was trying to get me out of the building. Sit down. No, sir. Olivia, I'll see you Thursday, she said. That's when Ruth Feldman is going to call you. She made it to the elevator and the stairwell and the parking lot, and she got all the way to the passenger door of a Ford F-150 before her legs quit, and Ethan Walker got out of that truck and caught her under both arms and put her in the seat like a man loading something breakable. I got you. I'm fine. Sure, I'm fine, I just... She was shaking so hard her teeth were going. It's adrenaline. It's a physiological response. It'll pass in 4 minutes. Okay. Don't say okay. What do you want me to say? Say something that isn't kind, Olivia said. I can't take another kind thing right now, I'll come apart. Ethan started the truck. Your father's a coward, he said. She started to cry. There it is, he said, and pulled out of the lot. At 4:15 that afternoon, Richard Carter's black Suburban pulled into Ethan Walker's driveway, and Ethan met him in the yard because he did not want that man inside his house. Mr. Walker. Sir? You have a nice place. It's dry and it's paid for, Well, half of it's paid for. 14 months on a 30-year note, Richard Carter said. 261,000 at 6 1/8. You closed with 11% down, and you carried a $2,000 credit balance for 9 months last year. Ethan didn't say anything. That's not a threat, Richard said. That's 40 minutes and a friend at a bank, and I'm telling you about it so you understand the size of the room you've walked into. You want a beer? Richard blinked. What? I asked if you want a beer. It's 91 degrees and you're standing in my yard in a suit. No, thank you. Suit yourself. Ethan sat down on his own porch step. Say the thing you came to say. My daughter is about to destroy a career that took 19 years to build over a matter she does not fully understand, and she is doing it because a man with a high school education and a pickup truck told her she was brave. 2 years of community college, Ethan said. But go ahead. You think this is love? I think she came to my door at 1 in the morning with somebody else's blood on her sleeve because she couldn't stand to be alone in her own house, and I made her a cup of coffee she didn't drink. That's the whole story of me and your daughter. Everything else you're imagining. I'm prepared to be generous. Don't. $200,000. Richard Carter said it the way another man would say, nice weather. College fund for the child in a trust untouchable. No contact clause. It's clean, it's legal, and there is no version of the next 2 years where you and that little girl are better off than that. Ethan looked at his hands. He would tell Olivia later that he thought about it. He said he wanted the record straight on that because he'd read about men who don't even blink, and he'd never met one. He had $1,100 in checking. He had a kid who was going to be 18 in 12 years. He thought about it for about 4 seconds. Mr. Carter, he said. Can I tell you what my daughter said to me this morning? I'd rather you didn't. She said, is the lady in trouble? And I said, yeah, bug kind of. And she said, are you gonna help her? Ethan stood up. Now I've got exactly one thing to leave that child. It ain't a house and it sure ain't money. It's the answer I gave. So no, sir. I'm not gonna take your money. And you can go on and do the bank thing and the contractor thing and whatever else it is you do, and I'll tell you honestly, it's gonna hurt because I don't have any cushion at all. You're being a fool, probably. Ethan opened the screen door. But here's a thing I know that you don't, and I say this with respect for your age. You've got one kid. That's it. That's your whole allotment. And you spent 34 years making her into somebody who does what she's told. And it worked. It really worked. And now the one time in her life, she needs to be able to stand up. She can't hardly do it. And you're standing in my yard at 4 in the afternoon trying to buy a carpenter off because you're scared of what she'll be like when she learns. Richard Carter stood in the grass for a long moment. She'll fold, he said. She always does. Yeah, Ethan said. She might, but she'll fold on her own this time, and that's not nothing. It got expensive fast. On Tuesday, a general contractor named Bill Prater, who had thrown Ethan 4 jobs a year for 2 years, called and said the client had gone a different direction on the Bellevue remodel. On Thursday, his materials account at the supply yard went from 30-day terms to cash on delivery, and the kid behind the counter wouldn't look at him. On the following Monday, a bank in Brentwood declined a $12,000 equipment line he'd been pre-approved for in April. He told Olivia none of it. She found out anyway on a Wednesday night in July because Lily Walker asked at the dinner table why Daddy sold his good saw. Olivia put down her fork. Ethan, it's a saw. How much of this? Bug, go get your book. But we're eating. Go get your book, sweetheart. Lily went. Olivia waited until the stairs stopped creaking. How much? About 70% of my work, Ethan said. And the truck payment's the truck payment either way, so I'll cover it. No. Ethan, I have money. You have your father's money. I have my own money. I've been in attending for 8 years. She stopped. She'd heard it. The house. He co-signed the house. He co-signed the house, Olivia repeated slowly. And the car's in a family LLC because of a tax thing that Marla explained to me in 2019, and I didn't listen to. She put her face in her hands and laughed, and it was an ugly laugh. 34 years old, 11,000 babies, And if that man wanted to, he could take my car and a phone call. So take it back. How? One thing at a time, Ethan said. Refinance the house in your own name. Buy your own car. It'll be a worse car. I don't care about the car. Then that's your answer. She sat there a second. Then she said, I have to call Daniel. Ethan looked up. Reyes. Ruth says the 7-year-old complaint file is the pattern. She says 1 falsified statement is a mistake and 2 is a practice. And if I want a regulator to care, I need to show them it's how they do business. Olivia's hands had gone still on the table. And she says I can't use it without his permission because it's his life, not mine. And if I put his name in a filing without asking him, I've done the exact same thing to him twice. You know how to reach him. I've had the number in my phone for 7 years. Under what? Under D. At 9:12 that night, Olivia Carter sat on Ethan Walker's back steps and called a man in Houston, Texas. He picked up on the 4th ring. Hello. Daniel, it's Olivia Carter. There was a silence on that line that went on so long she pulled the phone away to check it hadn't dropped. I know, he said. You still have my number. I never deleted it. I figured one day I'd want to know if it was you before I decided not to answer. He didn't sound angry. That was somehow the worst part. He just sounded like a man who'd been up since 5. How'd you get mine? I never deleted yours either. Huh, he said. Daniel, I need to say something and I need to say it in one piece, and then you can hang up and I'll never call you again. Go ahead. I signed the statement about you 7 years ago. Nobody forced me, nobody threatened me. My father asked me to, and I did it in 20 minutes, and then I went and got lunch. Her voice did not hold, and she kept going anyway. It was true in the way a knife is true. I picked every word so it would be defensible, and I knew what it was going to do to you, and I've known every day since, and I never called you, and I'm not calling now because I want to feel better. I'm calling because I need something from you, which makes this worse. Another long silence. You know what I remember, Daniel Reyes said. I remember I got the letter that I didn't match, and I sat in my car outside a Whataburger for 2 hours, and the only thing I could think about was that I was going to have to call my mother. A breath. She cleaned rooms at a Days Inn for 19 years, Olivia. I was going to have to call and tell her it didn't take. I know. You don't, but that's okay. Daniel. What do you need? She told him. It took 4 minutes. Grace Halloran. The notebook. 6 events. The flex model. The 4-page statement with her own electronic signature on the last page. When she finished, Daniel Reyes said, They did it to you. Yes. Well, he said, and there was something in his voice she couldn't read at all. Huh. You're allowed to enjoy that. I did, for about 9 seconds. I'm not proud of it. A chair creaked somewhere in Texas. Olivia, can I tell you the thing I've wanted to say for 7 years? It was never the statement. I want you to hear that because I think you've built a whole cathedral on the statement, and it's the wrong building. They were going to end me regardless. Your paragraph was decoration. Then what was it? You didn't call me, he said. That's it. That's the whole thing. 14 months and I sat in that car outside a Whataburger and my phone didn't ring. He said it without heat. I would have forgiven the paper in a year. I never once figured out the phone. Olivia Carter sat on a stranger's back steps and cried without making any noise at all, which was a skill she'd had since she was 9 years old. I'm sorry, she said. I believe you. Will you let Ruth call you? Send me everything, Daniel Reyes said. I kept my copies too. Everybody keeps their copies. That's the one thing we've all got in common. Then after a beat, are you okay right now, tonight? There's a man, Olivia said. He's got a 6-year-old and a truck, and he's losing his business because of me, and he made me a cup of coffee at 1 in the morning and didn't ask me a single question. Good, Daniel said. That's good. Don't do the thing you do. What thing? Where you decide people are better off without you, and you call it consideration. The filing went in on the 11th of August. It was not a press conference. Olivia had imagined a press conference for about 6 weeks, and what it actually was Ruth Feldman submitting a complaint to the Tennessee Department of Health and a parallel report to the accrediting body with attachments, and then a 2-week silence that nearly killed everyone involved. Then the phone calls started. Not to Olivia. To nurses. Because Grace Halloran had worked that unit for 9 years, and Grace Halloran had names in a notebook, and it turned out that when investigators call a labor and delivery night nurse and ask her about the second room, she does not say she doesn't recall. 17 of them gave statements. 14 were current employees. At 6:40 on a Thursday morning in September, Olivia Carter got a call from a woman she'd never spoken to in her life. "Dr. Carter, this is Denise Whitlow. I work in medical records." Olivia sat straight up. "Denise, you know my name. You're the one who took the call, in June, from my neighbor." "That's right," Denise said. "And I need to tell you something, and then I need to hang up because I'm at work. When that man called me about Miss Grace's box, I did what I'm supposed to do. I put it in the log, and I sent it up. And I have not slept right one night since, because I've known Grace Halloran since 2011, and I knew exactly what that box was, and I sent it up anyway, because I've got 14 years in and a daughter in nursing school." "Denise, let me finish." A breath. "I made a copy of the log entry, and the routing, every hand it passed through and every timestamp including the 2 at 9 at night that aren't supposed to exist. It's on paper in my house. I've had it since June 11th. Olivia couldn't speak. "You tell your lawyer to call me at home," Denise Whitlow said. "Not here, home." The hearing was in November. It lasted 2 days. Richard Carter did not resign. That was the thing Ethan never got over, and Olivia had to explain it to him 3 times. Men like that don't get carried out. What happened was that the flex model was rescinded system-wide in the first week, and a corrected review was filed in the Halloran matter, and a consent agreement went on the hospital's record with a monitoring period, and Richard Carter's contract as chairman was quietly not renewed in the spring, with a statement thanking him for 19 years of service. And Olivia Carter got a finding. That was the price, and she'd known it since June, and it still took the floor out from under her when it came. A formal action regarding credential integrity and failure to secure protected access. Not a suspension. A finding in the database for 30 years exactly the way her father had said. She read the letter twice, and then she drove to Ethan's house and stood in his kitchen and said, "It's on me. It's on me now permanently, and every hospital in the country will see it every time I move for the rest of my life." "Okay," Ethan said. "Ethan, does it stop you practicing?" "No." "Does it stop you delivering babies?" "No." "Then it's a scar," he said. "You know what a scar is. It's the part that healed." She stood there. "That's the corniest thing anybody has ever said to me," she said. "I've been working on it since Tuesday." "It's terrible." "Yeah, it's pretty bad." Olivia Carter laughed until she had to sit down, and then she stopped laughing, and Ethan came around the table, and she put her forehead against his chest and stayed there, and neither of them said anything for a long time. "I deleted it," she said finally. "Deleted what?" "The letter, the resignation." Her voice was muffled. "I read it one more time last night, and it was written by a woman I don't know anymore, and I put my finger on the trash can, and it was gone, and I sat there and I felt—" She lifted her head. "I felt like myself. Ethan, I don't think I've felt like myself since I was 26 years old in a stairwell at Mass General, wondering if I'd get the fellowship." "So what happens now?" "Now I go to work Monday," Olivia said. "That's it. That's the whole thing. There's no better ending than that. I go in Monday, and I do a delivery, and then another one. Except now the second room is staffed, because 17 women who make $62,000 a year picked up a telephone." Upstairs a door opened, and small feet hit the hallway, and Lily Walker came down in her pajamas and stopped on the bottom step, looking at the 2 adults standing in her kitchen. "Are you crying?" she said to Olivia. "A little bit." "The good kind or the bad kind?" Olivia wiped her face with the back of her wrist and thought about it seriously, the way she'd learned that this particular child required. "I don't know yet," she said. "I'll tell you in the morning. Is that okay?" Lily came down the last step, crossed the kitchen, and hugged her around the middle without a word. And Olivia Carter, who had spent 34 years being exactly what she was told to be, stood in a half-remodeled kitchen in a rented life she'd never planned on, and put her hand on the back of a 6-year-old's head, and finally, for the first time, held on. Monday came, and it came at 5:40 in the morning, and Olivia Carter stood in her own kitchen with her hand on the door handle for a full minute before she could make herself turn it. Ethan called at 5:52. "You in the car yet? How did you know I wasn't in the car?" "Because it's you," he said. "Get in the car." There are 41 people on that unit who read the same paper everybody else read, and every one of them knows I have a finding, and every one of them knows whose daughter I am. Yep. That's your whole contribution. Yep. Olivia, you're gonna go in there, and somebody's gonna be weird to you, and then you're gonna deliver a baby, and then it's Tuesday. Somewhere behind him, a cereal bowl clattered. That's how this goes. It's not a movie. It's just Tuesday over and over until it stops hurting. She got in the car. At 6:58, she badged through the doors on the 4th floor, with a badge that had been dead for 5 months and was now alive again. And the first person she saw was a night nurse named Charlene Boyd, who had 31 years in and had never once in 8 years said a personal word to her. Charlene stopped in the middle of the hallway. "Dr. Carter." "Charlene." "Second room staffed." "I heard." "No, ma'am," Charlene said. "I don't think you did hear it. I've been here 31 years. I have asked for that room since 2013. I have asked in writing. I have asked in meetings where they wrote my name down." Her chin came up and her eyes went bright, and she did not let one single thing fall. "Second room staffed. That's all. I'm going home." And she walked off down the hall, and Olivia Carter stood there holding a cup of coffee she wasn't going to drink. She delivered 3 babies that day. The first one was uncomplicated. The second one was uncomplicated. The third one was a 19-year-old named Kaylee, with no partner in the room and no mother in the state, who gripped Olivia's wrist at the very end and said, "Don't leave, don't leave, don't leave." And Olivia said, "I'm not going anywhere, honey. I've got nowhere else to be." And meant it in a way she had not meant anything at work in about 4 years. She got in her car at 8:40 that night and sat there and felt something she had to think about for a minute before she could name it. It was not happiness. It was closer to being present. Like a person who'd been watching her own life through glass had finally come into the room. She texted Ethan one word. "Tuesday." He texted back, "Told you. Come eat, there's chili." The trouble was, the chili was about all there was. Ethan Walker had lost roughly 70% of his work by August, and by the end of September, it was closer to 80. And in October, he did a thing he had promised himself in 2019 he would never do again, which was put on somebody else's shirt. He took a job as a site super for a residential outfit out of Gallatin. $52,000 a year W-2 benefits, and a 26-minute commute in the wrong direction. He told Olivia on a Sunday flatly, the way a man reports weather, "It's not a step back." "I didn't say it was." "You've got a face." "I have one face apparently, and everybody keeps describing it to me." She set down her fork. "Ethan, is it because of me?" "Some of it, not all of it." Which is a very generous way of saying yes. "It's a house payment," he said. "And I'm home by 5:30, and the school bus comes at 3:15, so Mrs. Delgado's picking her up 3 days a week, and that costs money too. And that's the actual math, and it doesn't have anything to do with your father, not on paper." "On paper." "On paper," Ethan said. "Everything's fine, that's the trick. Remember you told me, it's just weather." Olivia was quiet a moment. "I'm selling the house," she said. He looked up. "I called a realtor Thursday. It's listed as of this morning." She turned her glass in a slow circle. "It appraises at 410. I owe 320. I clear maybe 70 after everything, and I take that 70 and I put it down on something that has one name on the deed, and it will be a smaller house on a worse street, and it will be entirely mine." "You love that kitchen." "I have never once cooked in that kitchen." "That's fair." "Ethan." She waited until he looked at her. I have lived in a house my father co-signed, driven a car in a family LLC, and worked in a building with his name on a plaque, and I want to say a sentence out loud that I have never in my whole life been able to say. I want to say, this is mine, and if everyone I know disapproved of it tomorrow, it would still be mine. Then say it. I can't yet. That's why I'm selling the house. The gray house next door went under contract in 11 days to a couple from Ohio, and on the last Saturday in October, Olivia Carter moved out of 4 bedrooms and into a 1956 brick ranch off Gallatin Pike with 1,100 square feet, a carport, and a water heater that Ethan looked at for about 9 seconds before he said a word he immediately apologized to Lily for. Lily helped carry things. Lily's contribution was pillows exclusively, and she made 40 trips. At 4:10, that afternoon, sitting on the floor of an empty living room, eating pizza off the box, Lily Walker asked the question that had been on her for a month. Why did you get a smaller house? Because it's mine. The other one wasn't yours. Not really. It's complicated. You always say that. You're right, Olivia said. That's fair. Okay. The other house my dad helped me buy, and because he helped me buy it, he could always say things about it. He could say what color the door should be. He could say I should sell it. And I always did what he said. Lily chewed on that literally and otherwise. Is your dad mean? Ethan said, bug. It's all right. Olivia set the pizza down. No, he's not mean. That's the hard part. He's very polite and he's very smart, and he thinks he's helping every single time. That's worse, Lily said. Both adults looked at her. What? The 6-year-old said. It is. If somebody's mean, you can just tell them to stop. At 3:14 in the morning on the 9th of November, Olivia Carter's phone went off on a nightstand in a 1956 brick ranch, and she came up out of sleep the way physicians do, all at once, already reaching. It was her mother. Mom, your father's at St. Thomas West. Olivia's whole body went cold and flat and calm. What is it? They said it's his heart. They said the word cath. Olivia, I don't know what any of it means. I have been sitting in a chair for 2 hours and nobody will. Mom, listen, is he awake? Yes. Is he talking? Yes, he's talking. He's been giving instructions to a nurse since we got here. He had them bring him his phone. Then he's fine, Olivia said, and something in her chest came loose. Mom, if he's giving instructions, he's fine. I'll be there in 25 minutes. She sat on the edge of the bed for exactly 4 seconds. Then she called Ethan, and he picked up on the second ring like a man who never really slept anymore either. My father's in the hospital. Go. I'll be there in 10 minutes. Ethan, it's 3 in the morning. You have work, Lily. Olivia, he said. I'm putting on pants. Go get in your car. At 3:52. In the morning, she found her mother in a family waiting area on the 2nd floor, and Eleanor Carter, 63 years old in a cashmere coat over pajamas, stood up and said the strangest thing. She said, I left him. Olivia stopped walking. What? 3 weeks ago. Her mother's hands were knotted together. I've been at your Aunt Sandra's in Franklin. I didn't tell you because I didn't want you to have to hold it while you were holding everything else. And then tonight the hospital called me because I'm still the emergency contact, and I drove 90 minutes, and I have been sitting in this chair thinking I am not sure I am allowed to be here. Olivia sat down. Her legs did it without her. Mom, I read it, Eleanor said. The filing, the whole thing. Ruth Feldman's office sent a copy to the house because your father's name is on it, and he left it on the counter for 6 days like a dare. Her voice was shaking now. Page 4. I read page 4. Olivia and I read the part where your name was on it, and I stood in my own kitchen, and I could not breathe. He said he did it to protect me. He did do it to protect you. Eleanor's chin came up. And that's the thing I've been sitting with for 3 weeks. He wasn't lying to you. He has never lied to you. He has just never once, not one time in 39 years, considered the possibility that protecting somebody and running them is 2 different activities. Mom, I need to tell you something about Boston. I know about Boston. Olivia went absolutely still. You know, I knew in 2019. Eleanor Carter said, about 4 months after. Because I asked him why you'd turned it down, and he said your mother needed her, and I said, Richard, I had a scare. I had a 9-day scare, and he looked at me, and he said she needed to be closer anyway. And you didn't tell me? No. Why? Her mother's face did something Olivia had never seen it do. Because I was afraid you'd leave, she said, and I would have been alone in that house with him. That's the whole reason. There isn't a better one, and I've looked for one for 7 years. She wiped under her eye with one knuckle. So when you ask me why I left 3 weeks ago, that's why. Not page 4. Page 4 just made me finally read my own handwriting. Olivia sat in a hospital waiting room at 4 in the morning and held her mother's hand, and neither of them said anything for a long time. At 4:30, Ethan Walker came around the corner in a work jacket with Lily asleep against his shoulder and a rabbit hanging off one hand, and Eleanor Carter looked up and looked at him and looked at the child and said, "Oh, ma'am? You're the neighbor." "Yes, ma'am. Ethan Walker. My husband tried to give you $200,000. He did, and you said no." "I did." Eleanor Carter looked at that man for a long moment, and then she said, "Sit down, Mr. Walker. I'd like to hear how she's been." They let Olivia in at 6:15. Her father was propped up with a line in the back of his hand, and his color was bad, and the very first thing he said was, "It's a 90% lesion in the LAD. They put a drug-eluting stent in at 4:15. Door to balloon was 51 minutes, which is not good, and I've already made a note about it." "Hi, Dad. You didn't have to come." "I know. Your mother called you." "She did. Is she still here?" "She's in the waiting room." Richard Carter looked at the ceiling for a while. "She left me," he said. "I know. I'd like to. It surprised me." Olivia sat down in the chair beside the bed, and for the first time in her adult life, she did not have anything to defend. "They're not renewing your contract," she said. "No. I didn't want that. You didn't want it. You caused it. Those aren't contradictory." He turned his head. "You want—" "Olivia, I've known since June. They told me the week after the filing. I've had 5 months to work out how to be furious at you, and I couldn't build it. That's what I've been doing at 4 in the morning for 5 months, failing to be angry at my daughter. Dad, I want to tell you something, and then I want you to go home and sleep." His voice was thinner than she'd ever heard it. "In January, before she delivered, Grace Halloran came to my office, made an appointment through Marla, sat in the chair you sit in." Olivia's hands went cold. "She told me she'd been keeping a log, 4 years of it. She said, 'Mr. Carter, I'm not trying to make trouble. I'm trying to make a case, and I want to bring it to you first because I've worked here 9 years, and I think you'll listen.'" He closed his eyes. "And I told her to file it through proper channels. And then you buried it. And then I buried it," her father said. "In the ordinary way, not in a movie way. You send it to a committee that meets quarterly, and you don't put it on the agenda. It takes 4 minutes. It doesn't even feel like anything." "He died 3 weeks later." "Yes." "Dad, look at me." He did. "Did you know," Olivia said, "when you signed my name in April, that she'd already come to you in January?" "Yes." "So it wasn't only about protecting me." "No," Richard Carter said. "It was 3 things at once, and the one about you was real, and so were the other 2. And I have never in my life been able to explain to you that a man can do a thing for 3 reasons and mean all of them." He was quiet a second. "And I'm not asking you to forgive it. I don't think you should. I think if you forgave that this morning, I'd have to conclude I raised somebody I don't respect." Olivia sat there with her father's blood pressure cuff cycling in the quiet. "I'm not going to forgive it," she said. "Good. But I'm going to come back Thursday." That got him. She watched it get him. 66 years old, 4 hours out of a cath lab, and Richard Carter's face came apart for about a second and a half before he got it back. "Thursday's fine," he said. They did not become close. Olivia would say that to people for years afterward, whenever somebody wanted the tidy version. She'd say, "We didn't heal, we just became 2 people who have lunch." He came to the house on Gallatin Pike twice a year and sat on furniture he clearly found uncomfortable and asked Lily Walker precise questions about long division. That was all it ever was. It was more than nothing, and Olivia stopped requiring it to be more than that, and that was the actual work. Her mother did not go back to him. Eleanor Carter bought a 2-bedroom condo in Green Hills in February and learned at 63 how to pay a water bill. Daniel Reyes called in March. "You sitting down?" "Should I be?" The complaints expunged. He said it fast like he'd been holding it since the mailbox. 7 years. The board vacated the whole file. Ruth's people did it as a rider on the consent agreement, and nobody even fought it. Olivia, nobody fought it. That's the part that's been eating me since Tuesday. 7 years of my life, and it turns out all it ever needed was somebody with standing to say it out loud. Daniel, I'm not going back. I want to be clear about that. I'm 41, I've got 2 kids and a mortgage, and I make $190,000 a year selling cardiology devices, and I'm good at it. A pause. But my mother's still alive, and I got to call her Tuesday and tell her it wasn't true. That's what you gave me. You didn't give me my career. You gave me a phone call to my mother. Olivia had to put the phone against her shoulder for a second. Daniel. Yeah, I'm sorry I didn't call you. I know, you said. She could hear him smiling. Hey, did you keep the guy with the truck? I kept the guy with the truck. Then we're square, Daniel Reyes said. Preston Vance sent an email in April. It was 4 paragraphs extremely well written, and it did not contain an apology, and it ended with the sentence, "I hope you understand the position I was in." Olivia read it twice, and did not answer it. And later that night she told Ethan about it, and Ethan said, "You gonna write back?" No. That's growth. That's spite. Sometimes those look the same from the outside, Ethan said, and I'm not gonna be the guy who checks. They almost didn't make it. That's the part people leave out. It happened in May on a Tuesday, and it was not about her father or the hospital or the money. It was about a school form. Lily's 2nd grade had a family night, and the form had a line that said, "Attending adults," and Lily Walker filled it out in pencil at the kitchen table and wrote her father's name, and then underneath it wrote Olivia's, and then held it up. And Ethan Walker said, "Bug, let's leave that one blank for now." The kitchen got very quiet. Olivia set down the dish she was drying very carefully and said, "I'm going to go home." Olivia. "No, it's fine. I'm going to go home." He caught her in the carport at 7:40 in the evening. "Will you stop for 1 second? Say what you meant." "I didn't mean..." "Say what you meant, Ethan." She turned around and her voice broke on it. "I have spent a year losing a career, a house, a father, and an entire idea of who I was, and I did all of it standing next to you, and a 7-year-old wrote my name on a piece of paper, and you told her to erase it." "I didn't say erase it. You said leave it blank." "Because if you leave," Ethan said, "she's the one who pays." There it was. A year of it right out on the concrete. "Say the rest," Olivia said. "That's the rest." "That is not the rest, and you know it." Ethan Walker stood in a carport with his hands open at his sides. "Rachel didn't leave in a day," he said. "That's what nobody understands about it. She left over about 4 years in little pieces, and I watched every piece, and I told myself the whole time that if I just kept the house nice and kept my mouth shut, it wouldn't finish." His voice went rough. "And when it finished, I was fine. I was fine, Olivia. That's the truth of it. I was 36, and I'd already grieved it. Lily was 4, and Lily was not fine. And I sat on the floor of a bathroom with my kid screaming, and I made myself a promise about how many people I would ever let her love." "How many?" "1," he said. "Me. Because I'm the only one I could guarantee." Olivia stood there. "And then you knocked on the door," Ethan said. "So what is this? You've been waiting for me to go for a year." "Yes." "Ethan." "Yes," he said again. "Every day. Every single day since June I have been standing about 6 inches outside of my own life, waiting for the sound of your car not coming down the street. And I never said it out loud until right now. And Olivia, I have to tell you, it sounds a whole lot stupider out here than it did in my head." She laughed. It came out of her wrecked and wet. "You absolute coward," she said. "Yeah. You made me stand in front of my father, and you couldn't fill out a school form." "Yeah. That's the most cowardly thing I've ever heard, and I signed a statement that ended a man's career. I know. Ethan. She stepped forward and took hold of the front of his shirt with both hands, which was not a thing she had ever done in her life. I'm not going anywhere. Do you hear me? I gave up a house, a car, a name, and a plaque on a building, and the only thing I kept was you two. There is nothing left in my life that anybody could use to move me. I made sure of that. That was the entire point. Ethan Walker put his hand over both of hers. Okay, he said. Don't say okay. I'm gonna say okay, he said, because it's the only word I've got that's true right now, and you'd know if I picked a bigger one. The form went back in on Wednesday, in pen, at 6:20 on a Friday evening in June. 1 year and 1 week after a shelf came down in a garage. Ethan Walker stood in the back of an elementary school cafeteria and watched a 7-year-old in a paper crown recite 4 sentences about her family, and he found out what she'd written at the same time as 90 other people. My family is my dad, Ethan and my rabbit and Olivia. My dad builds houses. Olivia helps babies get born. She's helped about 11,000, which is more than everybody in our whole school. A pause for effect that she had clearly practiced. Olivia is not my mom. My mom lives in Phoenix and calls me on Sundays. Olivia is the person who stayed. Ethan Walker put his hand over his face in the back of an elementary school cafeteria and stood there. Olivia didn't. Olivia stood straight up with her hands at her sides and let it go down her face in front of 90 strangers and did not wipe it off once, and afterward in the parking lot, she said, I want to be very clear that I have now cried more times in 12 months than in the previous 20 years combined, and I hold you personally responsible. That's fair. It's not fair, it's just true. He asked her in September, and he did it badly, which she said later was the only way she'd have believed it. He did it at a kitchen table at 11:05 at night over a pile of quarterly tax paperwork because he'd been carrying the ring for 19 days and had blown 3 separate plans, and he finally just put it on top of a 1099 and said, I'm gonna say this wrong. Then say it wrong. I don't have anything, Ethan said. I want to be honest about that up front because you're gonna get asked, and by people whose opinion used to matter to you. I make $52,000 a year working for a man 10 years younger than me. I've got a truck with 190,000 miles on it. Half a house. 1 kid and she comes first, and she'll come first for the rest of my life, and I'm not going to pretend otherwise even tonight. I know all of that. I know you know. I'm saying it out loud because I want you to hear yourself not care. Olivia looked at the ring on the tax form. Ask me the question, Ethan. Will you marry me? Yes, she said. Obviously yes. I've been waiting since about February, and I was starting to think I'd have to do it myself, which frankly would have been very on-brand for me and completely unbearable for you. They got married in a backyard in April with 31 people. Eleanor Carter came. Richard Carter came in a suit and sat in the second row and shook Ethan Walker's hand at the end and said 4 words which were, You were right, Mr. Walker, and did not specify about what, and Ethan let him keep that. Charlene Boyd came and 11 other nurses off that unit, and they sat together in the back and were by a wide margin the loudest table. Daniel Reyes did not come, but he sent a card, and inside it he had written 1 line. She was 14 months of my life, and now she gets the rest of yours. Don't waste it. D. Lily Walker. 8 years old, walked Olivia out into that yard because she had asked to and would not be talked out of it. And halfway down, she stopped the entire wedding to whisper something, and Olivia had to crouch down in a dress to hear it. Are you going to change your name? Do you want me to? Lily thought about it with the gravity of a woman 3 times her age, which was a thing she had been doing since she was 6 years old, and sick in a bed at 1 in the morning. No, she said. Carter's good. That's the name that fixed the hospital. There is no big ending after that. Olivia used to apologize for it when people asked, and then she stopped. She went to work. She kept going to work. The second room stayed staffed, and in 2029, the state adopted a reporting rule that nurses in 3 counties still call the Halloran Standard, and Olivia Carter's name is nowhere on it, and that is exactly how she wanted it. The finding stayed in the database. It came up every time she credentialed for the rest of her career, and every time it came up, she explained it in the same 4 sentences, and not one committee in 20 years ever declined her. Ethan started his own outfit again in 2028, small 3 trucks. He was home by 5:30. The school bus came at 3:15 until it didn't anymore, and then a girl with a learner's permit was backing his truck out of the driveway badly, and then a young woman was calling from a dorm in Knoxville on Sunday nights, and every single one of those Sundays 2 people picked up the phone. And on a rainy night, years later, Lily Walker asked her father the question one more time, the way kids do when they already know the answer and just want to hear a person say it. What did she come over for that first night, really? A package, Ethan said. Dad, that's what she said. She said there was a box that wasn't hers, and she brought it across the grass at 1 in the morning in the rain. He shook his head slowly. Took me a year to understand that woman wasn't standing on my porch because of a box. She was standing there because she'd been carrying something alone for 34 years, and she couldn't do one more night of it, and the only light on the whole street was mine. So she saved you, or you saved her? Neither, Ethan Walker said. Nobody gets saved, Bug. Somebody just knocks and you decide right then whether you're the kind of man who opens the door. He opened it. That is the whole story, and it is the only thing he ever did that mattered, and every good thing in that house came through it.